fun. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Texas Camp. High noon. This is the Advanced Micro Devices case study, managing content management, consolidating content management. So if you're in the right room, great, welcome. Is everybody having a good time at Texas Camp? Yeah. All right, awesome. So let's dive in. Let's get started. First, we'll introduce ourselves.
Hi, I'm Karen. I lead the marketing technology team for AMD. Our role in this project from the client responsibility perspective was pretty much everything. So we wrote the requirements, the majority of the requirements. We led the RFP to select the platform to pick Drupal and Acquia as the vendor. And then these guys are the ones who interfaced with Chris and his professional services team pretty much daily through the build.
I'm Peter. I'm on Karen's team. I'm a developer and solutions architect. And just full disclosure, I am very new to Drupal. Really just started on this project. And I've been mired in SharePoint for most of the last decade.
We all have.
So, yeah, I feel like I'm starting to become a real boy now.
I'm Andy. I was the only person at AMD with a modicum of Drupal experience, and it was actually, frankly, bad Drupal experience, both from what was there and what I played with and stuff. And my core competencies are like hand waving and drawing things on whiteboards and terrible wireframes, and then making actually things that Pete has to actually do. So yeah. And we've been SharePointing for a very long time.
And I'm Chris Urban. I'm a manager in Acquia Professional Services, so I'm the official cat herder. My job is everything from helping AMD figure out what their requirements really mean when saying one thing and it means another, acting as Scrum Master, keeping things from going off the rails, keeping the developers happy, making sure nobody goes ballistic, and delivering their new site. So, to give you a quick overview of what we're going to talk about, we'll first start with some background. This is a pretty large and complex project, so we're going to spend a few minutes to talk about nomenclature. So when you hear these guys talk, you can understand what it actually means. We'll go through some of the solutions that we ended up landing on, talk about implementation, and then we'll take you through actual launch of the site and what the results of that launch were about. All right, so let me turn this over to Karen.
Yeah. All right, so just to provide a little bit of background, let's see, it's roll down. Yeah, so I assume most of you guys, I hope, are familiar with AMD. We make processors and graphics cards. We're in the top consoles. We also are in the server market. We make embedded products. And we have some other lines of business as well. So early on, as we were approaching this, that was actually kind of one of the challenges that we were facing, was this sort of breadth of the products that we make, the complexity of the product specifications and the data, plus we service pretty much every single industry you can think of, every customer group you can think of, the tools and the resources and the information that you have to get to these people. It was just a very kind of complex and daunting task. And then take that across 10 languages. So how to organize this, how to build the CMS right, how to present this data in the right way. That was a very big challenge. It was a lot. And then add to that, around September when we signed with Acquia, our executive sponsor asked us to please get it done in 4 months. Yeah. So the idea was to align the launch of the site with the launch of our new line of Ryzen processors in Q1. So that sounds like a nice thing. It also made us all want to jump off a bridge. It did get done, and we'll tell you guys a little bit more about how it got done in a minute. But just to give you some context, I wanted to go through at a high level what some of our key goals were from a business perspective. So when these guys get into the cool technical stuff that we did, you'll understand like the aims and the issues that we were trying to overcome. So as we mentioned, we've been on SharePoint for like 9 years. And it just took an inordinate amount of time and effort to enhance that platform and create the solutions that our customers needed. We also were on, our infrastructure was dying. It's still dying. It still exists. Starting to have more and more site outages, which was obviously impacting our customer experience and also our system users. And the situation was just becoming untenable. Also, our nav structures were pretty clunky and outdated. So there's some big opportunity there from the customer experience perspective. And then just in terms of the sort of operations and management of the site, wanted to enable our system users to do more and make their lives easier on a daily basis. A big example of that is that we've really needed a way for content editors to to have a way to modularly lay out pages on the fly. The way it was in SharePoint, we had to have a front-end developer actually create a new totally rigid, inflexible layout every time you wanted to do something simple like add or remove a field or shift like an element from one part of a page to another part of a page. Like someone had to code that, which sucked. And then I think probably the biggest need that we had was the ability to do server-side development. We couldn't do that on SharePoint, and that was obviously very limiting. And then finally, we just had a lot of consolidation and centralization that needed to happen, and we're still working on this. So we have a separate site for our corporate site, a separate site for support and drivers, one for our product specifications, one for our shopping function. And so content editors have to enter content across all these different sites, sometimes multiple times in multiple places, sometimes doing terrible things like entering specs in HTML tables, just manually. And then users have to navigate across all of that and try to find what they're looking for. So ultimately what we wanted to get to was obviously enter content and data once in one place, serve it to the right people in the right places, and that's this concept of COPE, create once, publish everywhere, which is in the title of the presentation. I think this is you, Chris.
Yep, okay. So this is one of, actually, is this your sketching?
Oh, yeah, you know that.
I think that.
This
It's
is
terrible,
what
it's
Andy
me.
does all day. That's what Andy does.
Did. I can do things now, but...
So from the vendor side, from an Acquia side, we had a couple of things we had to make sure we covered, right? Number one, we wanted to give them a way to develop the way they really wanted to develop these very complex content types and entities. But as Karen mentioned, we had a really short window of time. So in essence, what we had to do is basically build a vertical column all the way through an MVP that was extendable, that the AMD team could then take and expand out. We provide the top to bottom, good representative sample of code and development and architecture, lay out the groundwork, and they can take it and run with it. And that's what they're still doing now. But this is where this all starts from. Having the first concept of how are we going to refine that? If this is something that doesn't exist, where do we start? So the major goal for this project was this CEO announcement. They were launching a new product, a processor line, and they wanted to announce it, and they wanted to do it where the CEO, this is like the horror story everybody has, right? Brand new site, and the CEO is going to demo it to the world, so it better work. 3 pages down, 3 clicks in, and this is also another guidance for users of the site, because this is who is complaining the most about not finding what they want to find. They want to be able to do it within 3 clicks. We did not have any designs, none. This is the design. And because of all of this, from a project management perspective, normally Drupal projects, we start with 2-week sprints, right? So who here uses 2-week development sprints? Just show of hands. Okay. Waterfall. It's okay. No. 1 week. Okay. And 3 week. And any other time frame that I didn't say, 6 weeks or something ridiculous. Okay. So now we'll pick on you. Okay. So we only had 17 1-week sprints to get this done. And we did 1 week specifically because we wanted to be able to course correct very quickly, because this is our design, this is our content model. So we have a very vague idea of where things are going to go, and we have to figure it out as we're going along. Doing it in 1 week allows us to adapt very quickly. All right, so let's talk about nomenclature. And I think this is Andy.
No, it's Pete, actually, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right, so content types. Now, some of these are content types, some are custom entities, but we'll get into all that in a bit. Just to go over what kind of data we were trying to capture, we have basic stuff like landing pages, press releases, but really other than that, everything is about the products on this site, right? And that's kind of a recurring theme. We wanted to put the products front and center and stop making our users go to 5 different sites to find product information, right? So, so what were we trying to capture for products? Well, we have the specifications, right? So things like clock speeds and cache, memory, all that stuff. Shop data. Shop data itself is split into multiple types. You have the pricing information, the retailers, the reviews, all that stuff. The pages, which are the container that sort of presents everything, right? And then technologies, which technologies are both like a specification, right, and a separate landing page to talk more in depth about that particular technology. And then all of the support content. So this is all the post-sale stuff, drivers, KB articles, technical documents, what have you. So that's a pretty rough overview of what we were capturing. Now to categorize all that stuff, we have several taxonomies actually that we're using, but in terms of really the main ones that tie everything together, there's a couple worth mentioning. But by far the big one is the product taxonomy. So this gets tagged to almost everything that we were talking about before. It's our main categorization. There's a lot of terms in here, probably over 1,000, right? There's basically one for each product model across all of the different product lines that we offer. And this is organized usually in 4 levels. So we've got product types, things like desktop graphics, CPUs, so on. The families, which would be Radeon or Ryzen or Opteron. Product lines, like Radeon R7 series, and then the models. And so the model is the actual product, the actual thing we're selling. And that's typically what we're tagging when we're tagging content. Now, the other categories can be used in views and queries and so on, but the tagging is all done at the model level. And so the next one is the technologies. This one's a bit more flat, and as I mentioned before, this is more of a technology is like a special type of specification or a feature that any given product model might have. But the products share these, right? So we wanted to be able to associate these from a common set, so we just built them as a taxonomy or as a vocabulary. So ultimately what we're trying to get to is something like what you see here, where we've just got a teaser that we can show on one of these product pages. It's got an image and a title and a little description, and then a link to a landing page that they'll talk more in detail about it. But then they also have a few different categorization fields that we can use to target them in different ways. So they're tagged, again, to a model. But then they can also have what we call a product type category, which is really to say, what's this relevant to? Is this a CPU technology? Is it a graphics technology? What is it? And then we also have audience categories to say, is this something gamers would be interested in, or server people, or that kind of stuff. And then the feature, which is A feature is like a flag that says, yeah, display this full graphical teaser on the page. Otherwise, these will just display like as a line item or a bullet item within the specifications. Right? So with that, we're going to go into detail on the actual solutions.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hand it to Andy.
Yeah. Just want to make sure. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, I got this on a shirt. Okay. So, yeah, we wanted to make products the centerpiece. In the old site, there was a whole lot of marketing mumbo jumbo, and then you could finally dig down to product specifications, like, you know, the actual details, way at the bottom of a page, behind a tab, in an HTML table, which was disgusting. And we wanted that front and center. We wanted to tie related stuff together, like, you know, drivers, technologies, all these things, so that when you hit a product, the stuff that matters to it is all in the same place. And, you know, it doesn't have to get entered in a bunch of different places where you have to find it. We wanted to make it all easily findable. And then in-page navigation was more, you know, we had a whole ton of pages we'd create, and we had pages just to navigate to other pages, you know, pages full of links. We wanted to flatten that out, make big, giant, long pages that scrolled forever but had links at the top that would take you down, and use Bootstrap's a fix if you've ever played with that, and give you within the page a way to get to those sections, which is way better for us. And then consistent layouts, but also flexible layouts, because if you build any kind of layout at AMD, you know as soon as you push it out that you're going to be asked to change it, which meant for us we ended up with like 40 content types for pages. But we also wanted consistent branding. We wanted these pieces, these Lego blocks we were making them with, to be, you know, the same, so people had a toolbox to pick from, rather than, you know, creating comps and creating this whole weird thing just because of this new product. So, did I miss one? No. Oh yeah, direct path to relevant support. Our support site, we haven't gone out with this. So if you want to see where we want to move away from, take a look at our site. It still sucks. We want to get from these product pages to support product pages, to the stuff that, you know, you're looking for support if you already own one of these cards. Right now, it's a nightmare, and that's something we're working toward. We're still new. So we're going to build all the things, right? We're using workflow out of the box because it's something like we understand from SharePoint land, which may be good or bad, but, you know, it's what we're used to, right? And we're using media module, or media entity module, because it also makes sense to us. Getting to that mindset was kind of interesting. People expect, you know, images with the URL to them, and the fact that you can't upload an image on top of an image, it gives it a new URL, was just like, what are we dealing with? But it's cool once you get used to it. It's a mindset change. And then, oh my gosh, paragraphs. Thank you, buddy. Paragraphs are our lives right now. We love it. Nobody's gonna be able to tell us different. They're just amazing. And our product pages are mostly dynamically generated. Our support pages will be dynamically generated when we do that, and it really reduces the workload to create stuff. And Pete is actually going to show you about the actual content, because he's the details guy.
All right. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about the actual entities just yet, but just moving along in terms of talking about what we're trying to capture. This is the product data, right? So the actual specifications. So this is one piece that we're trying to capture and display on our product pages. And this is probably the largest set of data that we were bringing in. So to give you an idea, we have somewhere around 10 or 11 product lines. So that's going to be things like, you know, CPUs, desktop graphics, workstation graphics, memory, all that stuff. And total around 1,200 products. And each one of these product lines it's basically a separate field bundle, and that could be anywhere from 30 to 75 fields total that we're bringing in. And what we wanted to do was be able to bring all of this in just automated. import, which we'll talk about how we did that in a bit here. But this is just, real quickly to give you an idea of the data that we were trying to bring in. So, yeah, we're going to talk about landing pages next.
Yeah. All right. So, wanted to go from something like 40 content types to 1. So, and flexibility, seriously. So we went with multiple paragraph containers, right? Full width 1, 50/50, 3-column, 4-column, which 4-column was kind of under duress, but hey, we did it. And view modes, which inside these paragraphs, you drop a text media link thing, and you can give it view modes of image left, right, up, down, whatever. And then with those view modes, you can make them responsive. So if the image is on the right, when it goes to small, the image ends up on top. Really cool stuff like that. So this together gave us pretty much everything we wanted on building out a page. That media text call to action is, it could be a video, it could be an image, really flexible there. And we were able to create some paragraphs and attach views to them. So like if you want to say, here's the products you can buy, whatever, we could drop that in. If you wanted to, show like on a Ryzen family page, the processors, with like a little teaser view, drop that in. Now we got a game, which is its own content type, but we'll let that go. But it deserves it. So, you can drop games on there and say, here's the games we're featuring, right? So all of these were just huge gains for us. We were, before, building bespoke styles for everything to make it go down to responsive and work. We just used Bootstrap. And it just made everything so much faster and so much cleaner and so much more uniform. All right, so it looks something like this. Is this the one where, yeah, so this is our full width. We ended up adding 2 calls to action, even though you're not supposed to because of flexibility. But yeah, full width, right? And then we got the 50/50, and we're still kind of dealing with too long of titles. Nobody wants to listen to us, but hey. All right. And then we got the 3-column. We're not showing you the 4-column because I still hate them, but they're on those deeper pages, right? 4 clicks in. But it kind of looks pretty sweet. It's got big long pages, and the designers love them because they can put big giant images on pages, which is what they love to do. This is Pete. This is Pete.
Okay, so everything that Andy just talked about with the landing pages and the paragraphs, product pages can do that too. Right? So the product page is really where, again, where we're going to aggregate all of that dynamic data. But in addition to the dynamic data, we've got the paragraphs at the top, so marketing, copy, and all that kind of manual stuff that can all go up there. Then we've got the shop stuff. Okay, and we'll talk in detail. Andy will talk in detail about the shop entities in a bit. But that's being pulled in via a taxonomy reference. So pages tagged with taxonomy, that's matching against the shop data. And then we've got the technologies, which are really a part of the specifications again. So we've got specifications entities that are referencing technology taxonomy, and then the page is pulling in the specifications and pulling in the taxonomy along with it. And again, like if the technology is featured, it's going to display in its own special section up there with the teasers, but otherwise it's just going to display along with the rest of the specifications. Okay. So to talk a little bit more about the specifications entities, right? So we've got the basically one entity type, the product entity, and then it's going to be split into multiple bundles, so 11 bundles total for each of the product types that we have. So under the general specifications, which is kind of common to all of the entities, these are the core fields. We've got our titles, the taxonomy references, basic show hide toggles, things like that. And then we've got the bundle-specific fields, which, CPUs are going to have things like, clock speeds and L1 cache, L2 cache, and so on. And then graphics cards, we have, display output information and, all the different cores and stream processors and all that stuff. So, and then finally, the technologies. So, and technologies can go on any bundle. They're a core entity field, and yeah, that's basically it. So, the shop entity. I'm going to let Andy explain because he understands it.
Pete understands products, I understand shop. It's kind of funny, but we break it down that way. So we have a company that goes out and scrapes Best Buy, Fry's, Newegg, all that stuff to find the stuff they're selling at what price. They kind of try to normalize all the specifications and the names of stuff, and then take like this one graphics card from XFX or whoever, list out all the different places that are selling at what price. Have links, we've got some refer kind of stuff, so we can see what people are buying and cool stuff like that, right? But that's an involved process, and then they dump some XMLs in an FTP daily. So, one way we could do it would be with external entities, but that would kind of suck. So we've got these XML files, and we're using import, migrate to bring them in every day, right? And then we're showing them on product pages in context. And before, we didn't have that. We had like Shop Now buttons that would take you to this whole different place. And you had to manually manage those links and kick them off there. So this sucks a whole lot less. And shop products aren't AMD products. Like with a processor, yeah, we sell this one processor. It's in a box. It's us, our brand. But we sell the chips to XFX and Sapphire and all these different people. They make the cards, they clock them up a bit, they have their own custom BIOSes, so it's not a one-to-one relationship. So we had to, deal with taxonomy. And then the product types include, there's some generic fields. Everybody's got a manufacturer and the different prices and all that stuff attaches. Just like products, there's some specifications because, this Sapphire card might be faster than this other Sapphire card, or it might have a different fan or some different outputs. So they've got their own specifications. And I remember in like Discovery, it's like, wait, you got specifications and specifications? And we were like, yeah. Circle. And then, we got multiple prices, so it's a many-to-one, and then another many-to-one relationship. So the prices are like its own entity type, and we're just, queries upon queries there. So it's really involved, but we're trying to sell stuff. So, we got to deal with it. And then, I talked about that already. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay. Oh gosh, Pete.
Yeah. All right. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because we've kind of talked about taxonomy quite a bit. But just to reiterate, the product taxonomy touches almost everything. But not only that, but it's just it allows us to expand, really into any type of content that we might want in the future, right? So it's like anything that we want to associate to a product, we can build that as a content type, tag it with the product taxonomy, hook it into the product pages, and then, it's there. So for example, the support stuff, we're not quite done with that yet. It hasn't gone live, but when it does, it's going to work much in the same way. So all of the different content types that we have for support, we'll tag it, and then we'll be done. It's that easy. Sort of.
Piece of cake.
Oh, this is me. Okay, so translation, we got 10 different languages. Translation is like our biggest problem, really. We're listing workflow here, but I'm going to complain the most about translation. The UI is actually way easier in SharePoint. In SharePoint, if you want anything like facets or facet labels or the search button to be translated, you've got to allow the entire authoring interface to be translated as well. And there's no separation there. So we've got people in the US entering the translations from copy decks and stuff like that. And we didn't want them to have to click an edit button in Chinese and then a publish button in Chinese, and have no other way around that. So we had basically English search buttons and everything, unless we were able to hack it with JavaScript in SharePoint. Drupal, piece of cake. Y'all are all familiar with translations. We moved from ENUS or whatever language and locale stems to just EN. ZH is kind of its own weird thing, but like just to language, and that let us cut down a couple language-specific sites that we were having to manage content for and stuff. But then we have these shop products, which are by where you are, so we had to handle that a different way. And we did that with the REST interface. We're giving them a cookie through Akamai. We're kind of, based off of their geolocation detection. And then we're pulling it in with REST based off of that. Yeah? It kind of makes sense to me now, but when they were building, I was like, okay, yeah. So that's pretty cool. And then bonus was that the authoring interface, everything was already translated, everything was already there. We didn't have to mess around with that. A whole lot of strings were already there. So, yeah. Pimp this.
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay, so, yeah. So at Acquia, we have two projects on GitHub. One is BLT and another is Lightning. BLT is really the one I would point you to from a developer perspective. Lightning is more of the profile, the place to start if you wanted to build something out of the box. When we started this project, Lightning was where we started, but where it is now is infinitely better. So I encourage you to go and try it, either or both. One of the most important things is that it gives us a lead time, a jump start of at least 2 to 4 weeks, because all of the things that you do when you start building a project over and over and over, you have your own set of specialized best practices that you want to apply. Caching, content types, users, workflows, all of that comes with BLT, and you can basically get all of that and save yourself the time to get started. But to give you an example, whereas you install Drupal, let's say out of the box, you get, what do you get? A basic page and an article, right? So this would give you, for example, a landing page. Now, we have a landing page, they have a landing page, and so that's immediately the first problem we run into with Lightning. This is a good example, but having to back that out, that is much more easily accomplished with BLT now, and Lightning, because they've all been, let's say, modularized. Is that the best way of putting it? So now, where the experience that we've gone through with this project has benefited the Lightning distribution by having gone through that exercise. Like, we can't make all of these assumptions, and we need to compartmentalize some of these requirements. Another nice thing about BLT is it gives you responsive handling out of the box. So what we were talking about with paragraphs, as well as everything else on the site, obviously the admin interface is responsive in Drupal 8. All of that comes with BLT. Now, this does come with some price. Some of the things that come out of the box, like I mentioned, we had issues with some of the views, the content types. I mentioned the landing page, and even just user roles. Reconciling some of that with the project requirements requires you to do some overrides or backing things out. It's a lot easier to do that now, but this was some of the work that we had to go through. That just leaves us with, let's say, custom navigation, that in-page linking. That's one custom element we had to add on. And obviously, the content needed a little bit of work. The biggest challenge here that we haven't talked about is that AMD is all Windows. So how many here are on Windows? That's my first question. Out. No, I'm just kidding. So, all right, I'm leaving. just kidding. So the biggest thing was getting that set up and running in a virtual environment on a Windows machine. I'm sure a lot of you are probably familiar with Jeff Geerling's Drupal VM or any other virtualization solution. Now it's a lot better than where it was, and especially on Windows. These guys can tell you, but they've gone through a lot of headaches just getting set up and running. I was just talking to someone earlier today, one other solution is just go out and buy a Mac. Yes, and honestly, if you think about it, dollars to hours, that's actually not a bad answer. It's actually much more, it's cheaper.
Did you have a question back there?
Yeah.
Not a question, but just to follow up on that, is that what the state of Texas is, or the same sort of situation where we were all on a Windows environment? And after being our heads against it for about 8 months, we went up and bought Macs.
So there we go, confirmation.
Our problem there was Macs don't have AMD processors, you know. So
Minor detail.
you know, yeah. I mean, if you get the little trash can one, but yeah. I mean, so you know, it behooved us to figure it out, and we did.
So, awesome. All right, so let me turn this back over to Pete.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to mention this one because it was one of those, oh, thank God that this exists, right? So when we were actually migrating over all of that specification data, in the past when we've done this, even just between SharePoint sites, it's been a huge hassle to do. We've usually had to get you know, like .NET developers involved to write migration scripts for us and stuff like that. Now here, what the Acquia team built for us with the migrate module is very straightforward, easy to understand. I mean, myself coming from not having any Drupal experience at all, after the project handoff, I had to, one of the first things I had to do was make a new migration script for one of the product types that, one of the other ones that came along that we hadn't built out yet, right? And it, you know, it took me a few hours to figure out maybe, and then run it and import it within minutes, and it was done basically. So that was sort of unprecedented for us. So yeah, I just wanted to call that out.
That's you.
Oh man, so
This one's more complicated.
I can't even believe you said that. This daily import, right? So yeah, this is updated. Like these prices can be updated, you know, daily. You never know when they're going to update, so you do like the full import daily, right? So it's using Drupal migrate, pointed to an SFTP directory, parsing that XML. The process in SharePoint involved, I don't even know what a Redwood project is, but that's because IT had to build it for us. And then getting that into SharePoint content types. And then everything in SharePoint we're doing was with search indexes. So getting that search to index it, it was taking like half a day. We have like, I get emails daily that are like, hey, it worked, you know, and those usually come in 6 hours after when it's supposed to start. We're not going to have that anymore. It's like a half an hour. I run it on my local, you know, and the person who is like, this is her thing, she just like can't believe it. It's going to be amazing when we've got all the different product types in there and we can just kill that system and put it out of its misery. It's going to be awesome. So rolling it out. Who's
That's
doing
me.
this? You're doing
Yeah.
this.
All right, so launching the site, launch day. Launch day was terrifying and yet awesome. I think we started launching at, about 7 in the morning? Rolling it out, keeping in mind our executives are at this huge event, right? And they're, it has to be there and it has to be live. We started at 7 in the morning. We literally went to lunch. We left the building at lunchtime. We were like, we're good. It was unlike anything. So we had a beer. Okay,
It was
so
actually like a letdown. You're almost like prepared for something to happen.
well, we were so used to things going wrong, even just pushing bundles of content on SharePoint, which was not a whole new system, right? Even just pushing bundles of content associated with these kinds of big events, things went terribly, terribly wrong. We would work all day, work into the night, the database would fail. I could go on. I will stop. But so, as we mentioned, we rolled out with this MVP, just the key features, the foundations, and only the critical content necessary to support that Ryzen product launch. That's all we did that day. That turned out to be about 300 landing pages and 40 product pages. That's globally across the languages. I think it's worth mentioning that our content editors were completely up to speed for this launch because they built those pages, the non-dynamic portions of them. They built them all themselves, and that enabled them to, as your marketing and PR people do, continue to enter content right up until and through the launch because they were still sending us content.
This guy's like
real
Don't do
time.
that. And we're like, hey, okay, we're doing that.
We did it. I know. They were like, we have to have a content freeze, and we were like, oh no, buddy. There was no content freeze. They were editing all the way through until lunch, and then we stopped. But so what's really interesting here is that the way that we were able to roll out only those bits and pieces, well, I mean, it was a ton, right? But to roll that out and still have that deep content that people care a lot less about still on SharePoint, and have it be completely seamless to end users could not tell. And it still can't. Are you on Drupal or in SharePoint? They cannot tell, because Pete wrote these amazing Akamai rules that just got people to the right places. And then, of course, the old site had to be rethemed to look more like, the new design as well. But that allowed us to defer the bulk of the migration of the non-critical content, a lot of that fluffy stuff that nobody cares about or needed to be rewritten and all of that kind of stuff. And it also gave us the time for these guys to figure out some of the more complex architectural stuff so that we could really do this thing right. What's next? Oh, demo time.
Oh, sweet.
All right. So now we got to do a live demo, right?
Yeah, live demos aren't scary, right? This isn't the new site. I wanted to show you the disgusting stuff that we came from. Yeah, 3-line titles. A lot of this is kind of look and feel, but left nav that we want to ditch. Oh God. Yeah, so this is them kind of trying to do something like the paragraphs that we're doing.
Memories.
And failing. And then, there's product specifications here, but it's this many scrolls down. It's behind a tab. This here is like our technology section. And this is product specs. That's
Manually
entered.
HTML tables.
So no room for error there.
It is disgusting. Yeah. So lunch is after this, everybody's probably lost their appetite. So this is the new stuff, the big designery image. These are paragraphs. Okay? This is our, what we call the sticky nav. I named it. It sticks. 50/50s where, you can interchange an image or a video. Yeah, big giant fluffy images, and we can actually go click through to buy stuff right here. And, like you click to see prices. There we go. This is on my local. I love it. You can see the details of the specific product, where to get them. This is beautiful. And I've got one with reviews. I actually had to do a review. These are kind of new. We haven't gotten reviews in there. There's a whole bunch of information directly on the page. So there's that. There's the technologies, which looks super sweet. These are kind of more product features now than just technologies, right? And then, you can see more of them. It kind of gets a little big, but we've got a lot more of a visual site rather than just listing off some things and linking off to pages, right? And here's Pete's specifications. And you can hit, dig into them and get more information and stuff. And then, like we talked about support, this is actually linking off to a support page, but we're redirecting it back to the home page because we haven't launched yet. But we've got a direct link due to taxonomy directly to that support page, which is super cool. And, oh gosh, there we go. And, we're building with paragraphs. We've got a menu to pick from. Our designers just love it, and they'll be like, 50/50s, and this is boom, boom, boom. And they're comping like nothing. They're just like, we get a little document, and here's the images, and everybody puts them in there. It's beautiful. And that's really basically it. It's sweet. Yeah.
Cool.
Want to go back to you to...
All right.
Any questions, by the way? Yeah.
I'm curious, even if your SharePoint stuff was not good, a lot of people like bad UX because they're just used to it. I was wondering how much of a transition it was for your marketing team to switch from entering stuff into SharePoint to this stuff.
Okay, so the content people. Actually, when we were doing vendor selection, we had like kind of sandboxes to play with, and we put together like with a competitor and then a Drupal one, and then actually we had one with paragraphs and one with panels. And by the way, Ron, again, because I mentioned paragraphs, Ron introduced me to paragraphs, and we've never looked back. So it was
I'm the one to blame.
never. So in SharePoint, it was kind of WYSIWYG, right? Like all the stuff was in place, and we really wanted to separate the presentation from the entry, right? So I took probably one of the less technical people who enter content. I said, here you go, play around with them, which one do you like? And she actually said Drupal. And it was unexpected, but it was great. It was life affirming for me. So they've had zero problem with it. The problem has kind of been when we ditched that left navigation, because that left nav would be huge in places, you know, and they had no other idea about how to get people from one part of the site to the other without this left nav. And moving away from that's been a little more difficult.
Is that where Sticky comes in?
Sticky comes in there. We've got another thing that we're not even really...
Well, one thing that we're doing to address it is we're adding flyouts. So this doesn't have flyouts. We wanted flyouts. We were told not to do flyouts. Now we're doing flyouts. So there are some strategic decisions like that that were maybe not the correct decision, purely just a strategy kind of a thing. And now that we've lived with it for a little while, those folks have
seen the light.
They kind of understand, right? So it was a little bit of a curve, but yeah.
So with those kind of things, because I'm only peripherally familiar with all of this stuff, I've just been hearing little bits and pieces, but one of the things that strikes me, especially with that idea, is that it sounds like you guys have really focused a lot on being really agile, and I was wondering about the difference that maybe you might see between what you have done and what other people do versus like your confidence knowing that you don't have to make all the right decisions today because...
I think that's huge.
Karen can tell you I'm a master at making the wrong decision. But yeah, the fact, we really feel like we're flying now because, you know, we're in their deck, but we're kind of a little too small to be agile. We're just doing stuff, you know what I mean? And we've had a lot of power to kind of just experiment and do things we want and not get it right the first time, but to make things better.
One of the really nice things about having not actually been given any direction on this project, like we didn't have designs, we didn't have requirements. Designs did come late. We wrote almost all our own requirements, as that has given us the freedom and the flexibility to make decisions and then course correct and that kind of thing. Some decisions did come down on us that we didn't care for, as is going to be the case in any project. But in general, we've had the freedom and the flexibility. And, you know, I wouldn't say we're too small to be agile. I'd say that we're just like so small that we're super agile.
Yeah, she's making me build a carousel right now, so.
You shut up. You shut up.
No, you know, I had so
Yeah.
much fun working with these guys.
I had a question about your product taxonomy. You described it in a way that made it sound like it's a single vocabulary.
Yeah.
But when you showed like the different sort of facets of it, like is it a graphics card or a CPU or whatever, and then you had like 4 or 5 of those that felt like they could have been separate vocabularies. So I'm trying to picture how that's organized as like a hierarchical thing, but also what was the decision process in making that one really big taxonomy as opposed to 3 or 4 that would allow you to taxonomize those things independently?
Sure. So it is one vocabulary, and the product types are basically at level 1, right? So that's your first layer, and then it goes on from there. I don't know if I can add too much detail as to why we did it as one as opposed to multiple. I think it probably simplified things from a development standpoint, and I don't know that we needed them to be separate. Right.
It seems to work for us.
Yeah.
What is the module that you've got though? Taxonomy Manager?
Yes. Yeah. If anyone is working on Taxonomy Manager, thank you, and if you could, you know, we're on D8. If you could keep it up because we're, yeah.
It is a bear. I mean, it's huge, right? The product taxonomy is the biggest thing we got, but I think it works as one vocabulary. It works for us at least, you know.
That module makes the editing it and managing it huge.
Yes.
I mean, otherwise it's a nightmare.
We had a question in the back.
Yeah, I mean, you guys did a great job of revamping the design and everything.
I just want to swamp that, so it might be me.
You guys to do any user testing on the old design versus the new design during that process, or how did the new design come?
You mean in the 4 months that we had? No, we did no testing.
That's not true.
Oh, well, Okay. No, we didn't do any testing. I can't. I'm sorry. I spaced on the last part of it because I was just kind of shuddering at the time.
Basically, I was asking if you were able to test old versus new.
Yeah, no, unfortunately not. And gut feel and just like getting around the site and the results that we're going to show kind of bore it out, but we haven't been able to do any kind of A/B, you know?
Are you leaning towards any kind of want to talk to us about your experience today and asking folks stuff?
We have done some of that. We have a little bit that we're about to share.
Yep.
We have done some of that.
Actually,
Looks
that's
like
a
we
great
know-
segue. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, because
Okay.
Yeah.
if we can get it rolling.
Maybe not
Yeah.
the right color, but.
Can you tell me about the content editors? Are they individual business partners or is it a team?
They're a team. Sorry.
Either way, so we have a headquarters team. It's a small team. It's 3 content editors that are here in Austin that do the U.S. sites, and then we have a team of native language speakers for our other 9 languages. They happen to sit together in an office in Shanghai. It's via an agency, but they're all named individuals. And they apply the translations for all the regional sites. Sometimes the HQ people will do the regional work, especially if we're launching at a time of day that it's the middle of their night. It's a last-minute change, so sometimes headquarters will do that. But we have, I think, like 10 folks in Shanghai, 1 for each region and a couple of backups, and then our 3 headquarters content editors. And that's the bulk of it. There are a few areas where there is some distributed management, but all the heavy lift is the group I just described.
How much longer do you have?
Yes.
Following up
7 minutes, we gotta wrap it up.
Except for the specific product differences for the different regions, is the entire site?
Yes. There are a few exceptions. There is some localization. We do create some unique content for particular regions, especially China. There is very little content that we don't translate across all the regions, and that would just be like, I don't know, you don't have to translate the trademark or something like that, right? But in general, yes, across all the regions have all the content by and large.
All right, so the results.
Results here, I'll do that real quick. Here, let me get back in. Oops, sorry. Okay, so, yeah. Yeah, I'm good. So this chart just shows industry standard of the effect that usually occurs with customer satisfaction with any major redesign or relaunch.
There's
So
4C. Tell them.
this is 4C. You expect for there to be a decline because change is disruptive. And people have to figure out the new way of getting around or whatever. It's just not what they're used to. So this is what would be typical, and we fully expected to see a dip in our CSAT, our customer satisfaction, when we launched. And this is how we performed against industry average. So we were very, very pleased about that. Yeah. So a few of the details. So let me just say, it's very early, really, to be looking at metrics, not only because we're not that far from launch, but we are still migrating. Users can't tell if they're on Sharepoint. They can't tell if they're on Drupal. So that's one caveat. But you can see, obviously, the CSAT is way up, brand preference is up. We've got, lower bounce rate, longer user sessions. The conversion in the shop conversion is fantastic. Now, I will say that while we're all horrified at having to time this launch against the Ryzen processor launch, I think that bolstered these numbers. The work that we did on the site helped increase, I think, positive sentiment for the processor. The fantastic processor that Ryzen is helped boost these numbers, right? But we do still expect that this is going to be, it's going to be positive even over time, even when that kind of like little love moment dies down for Ryzen.
I think let's go back to Andy.
Okay.
Oh gosh, yeah, hey. So I'm sure everybody's seen this? Yeah, it's wrong. It was not that way for us. Drupal proper, yeah, this isn't an insult. It actually made a lot of sense to us coming from SharePoint. That's not an insult, again. It made sense. The hard part was the DevOps stuff. I mean, it was our first time with GitHub, with Git, with Travis, with any kind of CI, with, oh my gosh, all the Node, NPM, and SAT, all of that horrible stuff. And again, doing this on Windows, that to us was the hard part. Once we got to actually work with Drupal, oh my gosh, we were flying. It was getting to that point, right? So this wasn't our experience at all. And yeah, Chokdar, like Keith said, you get into this new, okay, here's this thing, and then it's relying on 5 different other pieces because it's open source and it's building on something. To figure out what it is, you gotta like go through these layers, and it's just like you always end up in Chokdar somehow. The stuff we learned, know how long your fields are before you create them, Chris, because when you got some data in there and you find out that your titles are like huge and you got 65 characters to play with, then you got to do something destructive. Developing on Windows. Anybody wants to talk about that, I'll talk about it. But like Pete prefers it now, and I can do both that and my Linux box at home. It's no problem now. Translations and workflow together, there's an open issue on that right now, and that really bit us with random page unpublishing and stuff like that. And that's kind of still a little iffy. Paragraphs don't work great with responsive images like we have them because we're using the same container, the same nested paragraph inside those containers, so you can't apply a specific responsive image style to them. So you might have those 33s. Drupal doesn't know that it's that small, so that's a little problem for us. And then, oh my gosh, this incremental launch with Akamai is amazing. We're pointing to 2 different origins. AMD.com, depending on where you are, is going to Sharepoint and Drupal. Super cool. And yeah, use the off-the-shelf stuff because it has made our lives it's been life-changing. And extend. Where's Carlos? Yeah. Right now, because they were theming in the last 3 sprints. So the SAS is
we didn't get
spaghetti
designs,
code
right?
now.
I mean,
Exactly.
There were no designs, yeah.
SAS is spaghetti code, and we're going through, and Carlos said, just use extend, and that's what we're doing, and we're refactoring our SAS. And I mean, obviously, maybe the lesson learned is have your designs the first week, but if you don't, use extend later. There you go. We got time to get out of here, right? Yeah, but if you want to talk to us, I mean, we'll be around.